our best performing ad right now on social media is our overalls, which is our number one selling product also, but it's our sales manager wearing overalls that are arguably too tight for him. And that's what we've showed. So the comments are all these good old boys being like, oh, hell, now they're making skinny jeans overalls, you know what I mean? And all this kind of stuff. And so like, it just leads to all these comments, and that ad just kills it.
Welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies Podcast. Thank you for tuning in from wherever you are and however you're tuning into us today. Like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff that everybody says at the beginning of every YouTube video or podcast. My name's Caleb. I'm joined by my co-host, Harrison Kitson. How's it going, Harrison?
Good to see you. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Another beautiful day in Northwest Arkansas. And we're joined. This is a special episode because we've got two companies represented here today, all friends of Startup Junkie. We've got Andrew Gibbs-Dabney from LIVSN Designs. How's it going, Andrew?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're just like go down like you can call roll. Trent, Sugg, and Daniel Mitchell from BLK ELK. How's it going, guys?
How are you? Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, we are excited to have y'all, and we're excited to. So, we were just talking about this before we started rolling. Might be in the blooper reels, but Andrew is a returning guest. We love when you come because we always get like a spike in the downloads too. So we're just trying to get back on track with our numbers, and you can make the check out to cash. But Trent and Daniel are first time guests, so welcome to the Startup Junkies Podcast. We'll start with you guys. BLK ELK, tell us a little bit about, for those that completely unfamiliar, tell us a little about what BLK ELK is. Its origin story. Wolverine origin story and, all that.
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, BLK ELK is a production company that specializes in outdoor content. So we focus a lot on working with brands in the outdoor industry. It's not just video production. We do photography and drone as well. So we've been in Northwest Arkansas for a little over 10 years now. Trent and I were University of Arkansas students. Didn't meet at the University of Arkansas, but we'll get to that in a little bit later. Yeah. That's where Andrew comes in.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, cliffhanger. We've just been kind of holding it down in Northwest Arkansas, and we do projects here and national projects as well. So
cool. And when I first started Startup Junkie, which would have been 5 years ago this month, actually, we collaborated. You mentioned also off air that we collaborated on a number of things. Y'all covered like some startup weekends and startup crawl and stuff like that, I feel like. So done some work with you guys. We'll have to definitely revisit that too.
Dig up the files.
Absolutely. Yeah. Andrew, LIVSN Designs. Our longtime listeners, first-time callers will know some of your story, but, for our new listeners, what's the LIVSN Design origin story?
I think you may be overstating as much of the celebrity status, but I do appreciate it. So LIVSN was started in 2018 here in Fayetteville, out of my house, kind of over by Gully Park, and the original founding vision is still very close to what we're doing today. It was about simplifying the things that I own and then our customers are able to own so they can go outside more and spend more time doing the things that they love. And what that means for us is that we build really durable, really versatile outdoor clothing. And then the brand has evolved to really own that mission by supporting a full repair program, a resale program. So like say if you wore our pants for 2 years, had them repaired, wore them another 2 years, and they still got life in them, but you grew, right? You can now sell that to the next person who's going to take it on.
I'm in that range right now.
It's not an uncommon
the
story.
Flex canvas, and they're kind of tied up here.
You can keep them as goal pants, But yeah, so we've been doing that now it's crazy. It's been 6 years. And we've been working with BLK ELK since the very beginning. The early content, if you go back to LIVSN's Instagram from like 2018, which you probably shouldn't, is just like chopped up pieces of blog posts that I wrote, put behind landscape images that Trent took. That like he's like, hey, here's my old Flickr of all my Arkansas landscape shots. You can use this, and that's all the content was. So the very first anything related to visual content for LIVSN was BLK ELK.
Would you say that we were one of the first investors?
Absolutely.
And so y'all have collaborated. You mentioned, from the inception, really, with the photography. But tell us a little bit about how that came to came to be, how that kind of fomented over the years.
Okay.
As like a business collaboration. Well, and friends too, you know.
Yeah. So we actually all met at Fayetteville. So I don't know if people are familiar with Fayetteville, but we were all just holding down different roles at Fayetteville, and we had left the company kind of within a 2 or 3 year span, and we had gone out and started Black Elk. And one day Andrew hit us up and said that he was starting this company called LIVSN. I said, "What does that mean?" So he gave us a spiel on what LIVSN means, and I think the first thing we did was a Kickstarter campaign. So we talked about what they wanted to do with their future, and it aligned with where we wanted to take our company. So at that point, we became their official media partner. And since then, we've done, 4 Kickstarter videos, campaigns that were all funded, and the 5th one's in the works right now. So it's just been kind of one thing after the other over the last 6 years or so.
Nice. And you said you don't deserve celebrity status. Where does LIVSN rank as far as like Arkansas-based Kickstarter watermark? I mean, it's got to be.
We have the number 1 and number 2 most funded Kickstarters from Arkansas.
Okay, that's
wow.
that's worthwhile.
Yeah, so that is something we can lean on a little bit.
Number 5
benchmark.
Yeah, number 5's coming to topple that.
Knock on wood, if it goes as well as we hope it does, we'll have number 1, 2, and 3 here in the next couple months.
Awesome. So y'all, both companies are very much, I feel like from the outside looking in, very much Northwest Arkansas companies. Like there's just like the DNA of Northwest Arkansas feels very palpable in both companies. Would y'all say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from Little Rock, we're definitely more Northwest Arkansas oriented than Little Rock business style, for sure.
So what does it mean for y'all to like work with companies within the ecosystem, within Northwest Ecosystem's a buzzword, but within Northwest Arkansas, and to be supported by, I'm assuming largely with the Kickstarters, you've got a strong base here, I'm assuming, in addition to your following, but to work within this community and also be supported by it.
Yeah, I'll take the first shot at that. Just you mentioned Kickstarter. On our very first campaign, and even continually, we have a big local presence in our customer base, and that seems intuitive. What maybe is less obvious is that Arkansas typically is only in the top 10 of our customer groups in sales and revenue and all that kind of thing. So we're as, I guess, known, or from our customers are coming more from, say, like the PNW, the Colorado Rockies, places around like Chattanooga and Eastern Tennessee, and big in the Southeast. And Arkansas is always really high up there. And somewhat counterintuitive, it's rising faster as we get more known than it was early on. Because early on, one of the unique attributes of Kickstarter is it's a global audience. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter where you're from when you launch Kickstarter. If you have success on the platform, you're going to be in front of a global audience, and it's half and half, U.S., half abroad. So in those campaigns, we typically see about half and half, not even USA-based customers, so outside the U.S., global customers, and then the other half is USA, which is spread broadly across the country.
Very cool.
And it wasn't until we really put down roots with an office and a store and started going to more local events that we got more of a local presence, and that seems to be growing pretty fast recently in the last couple of years. But early on, it was more broad than here.
I think. Did you have something?
No, go for it.
I was gonna say for us, the collaboration and really just like the mentorship that we've gotten from other business owners and like entities like y'all's, it's been extremely helpful for us with our business over the last decade, because we didn't set out to start a business. It just kind of accidentally happened. And then we were like, okay, so what's the next step? And, I don't know what that is, so I need to ask someone. So I think speaking on Northwest Arkansas and the climate here when it comes to like business collaboration and things like that, it's just been really instrumental in our growth. And it's not so much just working with brands like LIVSN, but the things that happen in the side conversations with helping us kind of steer our brand towards what we want it to be today. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll add that. I mean, just a plug for y'all. The original like LLC formation and pointing to the right lawyers to do that and which things to register for with the state was all Startup Junkie. That was me coming here and telling Jeff, like, hey, I've never started one before. Can you help me with that? Like, literally the very ethos of your mission of what you do, we used. And ever since then, Startup Junkie has been a really good platform, really good amplifier, really good partner. And then this community, I think, wants to support local in a really big way, and not just like buy local, but also just like build up local brands and businesses to the national scale. Things like Onyx is now huge all over the world, and it came from this area. And Black Elk is now working for all sorts of clients all over the country and putting out great work. There's other really great brands, and I think when that happens here, we have a really big motivation or willingness to gather behind those brands and push them forward.
I can remember you and I sitting out here at one of these tables, like one of the third Kickstarter, maybe talking about how we're going to reach out to some like news outlets to send that out. So it's from our perspective, it's exciting to see the trajectory that everybody has too. We can end on that note. Startup Junkie's great.
I saw you with a smug grin as he was complimenting us the whole time. You getting happier and happier. He said, keep going. Let him speak.
Well, and I'll explain
Like Jack Nicholson.
I'll expand on that a little more. I mean, even for us, you guys were instrumental in like the first 4 years of our business as far as making touch points through the crawl and things like that and getting our name out there. And like Andrew was saying, this business community up here rewards, I think, good people and good work. And it just has snowballed from there.
And I think too, a testament to the region. I mean, it's not zero sum at all. Like everyone, I feel like collaborates well to an extent. And if Jeff was here, he'd talk about it being kind of in the DNA of Northwest Arkansas, based on your Walmarts and your Tysons and things of that nature. They kind of work with one another to an extent, and you are kind of doing that. And, in a way, providing the media and the work collaborating. And so as LIVSN goes this direction, you are attached to y'all, meet people, I'm sure, and have touch points. And then as y'all grow and expand, as a, client and collaborator standpoint, LIVSN has touch points.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
I'm over caffeinated and I'm talking all over the place. So
I'm under caffeinated, which is why I haven't said a thing so far. Can y'all talk a bit about how you've seen kind of the outdoor scene in general develop, particularly within Northwest Arkansas? Obviously, the trails are growing. It seems to be there's more and more to do outdoors every single day in Northwest Arkansas.
Go for it.
This episode brought to you by Runway Group, Malton.
I mean, so I grew up right around Wilson Park, right in here. Like my stomping grounds were downtown campus, Wilson Park, and I was outside every day. But there wasn't really anywhere to go mountain biking. You had Devil's Den. And I also grew up with my family. Summer vacations were always mountain bike trips to the Rockies. So we'd go out there and do like lift access downhill from when I was like 10 to when I was 20. And we'd come back here and be like, where do we ride these bikes? Where do I get to put that to work? And early on with the trails in Slaughter Pen, I was like, that's cool. But fast forward several years to when I was starting LIVSN in 2018, my wife and I were looking all over the country at where to potentially move and start this business. We were looking heavily at Boulder and the Front Range of Colorado. We were looking heavily at the Pacific Northwest of Northern California. And among other reasons that are more obvious, right? Like friends and family here. I heard a lot of rumblings about this region really coalescing around outdoor recreation as its focus and kind of its national brand. And I'd seen some early decks and just things about what the things we're seeing today. And it wasn't just mountain biking, but obviously as a mountain biker, that made it really sticky. And then it seems over the last several years, that's been a good idea. And the investment's only gotten stronger and the community buy-in's only gotten stronger. And where we used to only have Devil's Den to ride, no one needs to be told that we have a lot more options than that. But now we're focusing as a region and a state on floating and river access and climbing and all the other stuff. And that's what I've always thought is like we're the natural state. There's a reason why we were called that, or someone made the choice at some point to stick that in there as our tagline. And it's not because it's not manufactured. It's because we have an asset in the Ozarks and the Ouachitas that's unique in our entire region of the United States. And it's special in a different way. then, you know, I've been all over the country, been in a lot of places in the world, and there's definitely grandiose, like it's not, you don't go and see Half Dome when you walk outside, but there's something inherently special about the Ozarks. And I think it's the calmness, the remoteness, the wildness and ruggedness of it out there. And also the people that have made Ozarks the home over the years have just been really interesting types of people. It's not it's not what you'd expect when you go out and meet people out in the woods here. And in some of these communities, it's more artistic and more attuned to nature than you might think. So anyway, the long rambling answer of I think it's been great and it seems to be working. So.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, again, I came from Central Arkansas, but I've always been an avid outdoors person. And when I came up here, 07, 08, obviously the buffalo was a big thing. The Ozark Highlands Trail was a big thing. So that's what we were doing back then. But, you know, like in town, that kind of stuff, it wasn't crazy, like as far as like outdoor recreation. And then just in that 5-year period, I feel like it completely exploded. I mean, it's a totally different world up here than it was 2007, 2008, and we have everything under the sun except for snow sports. So yeah, it's been.
I'm sure it's coming.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
I will say one thing too, and I'll pass it back to Daniel, is that our early experiences were all at Fayetteville, right? Which is a brand here in Fayetteville and still exists, and was about our, you know, at the core, really, it was about showing off the Ozarks
100%.
and the vibe of Fayetteville, specifically that kind of chill, laid back mountain town vibe that you wouldn't expect. And I think early on, we all saw the reception to that on a national scale, right? There was other limiting factors, but like we saw that, oh, like the imagery from here is compelling. The video content we get here is awesome. Like people want to be a part of that. And I think that all kind of probably ticked something in our brains that, oh, like there's something about the Ozarks that's special and it's unknown and it's worth investing in.
Yeah. So we spend, at our busiest, we'll spend 100 days a year on the road doing projects outside of Arkansas. So we get to meet a lot of cool people in other places, other outdoor hubs, right? And I'll say like 5 years ago, it would be like, where are you guys from? We're like, Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas. And they're like, okay. Yeah, like what, you know, what's it like there? And it's like, oh, you know, it's this, it's that. But the jokes would come. The dirt floors, no internet, stuff like that. And it just has transformed in the last 5 years. We'll be on the road and people are like, Northwest Arkansas. And you could be name like any of the great outdoor regions in the U.S. And it's definitely starting to get the national recognition that it deserves. So it was really cool, like Andrew said, to just be on the beginning of that. Because I think Fayetteville was bottling up something special like way before we even realized how big it would get, like this whole region. So it's cool to know that we put our eggs in the outdoor basket and that basket grew. It grew. So
I think you can compare that too with, from our perspective of seeing a lot of kind of like the tech entrepreneurship too and the activity in that regard. And you have those conversations, whether we're recruiting for the accelerator programs all over the country and internationally, and people are like, huh? Like I'm going to go to Arkansas to do a tech accelerator? Like what? But that perception is absolutely changing towards like, oh, well, no, we want to be in Northwest Arkansas to launch this or do whatever else. So it's cool to see that kind of happening almost in lockstep, that activity.
Yeah, I've got people that I know from the industry hitting me up on just like a text message or email. It's like, hey, this isn't about work. I just wanted some of the beta on like mountain biking. Where should we stay? We're coming out. Or they'll say like, I'm coming in to go float the buffalo. Like it just, that didn't happen in the past. No one was asking me about where I live. It was very much the other way.
Something that happened recently that I thought was cool. I was flying back from Colorado for a project, and there was this group of young men on the plane with me, and I was like, I'm listening to them. I can pick up that they're going back to Fayetteville or like Bentonville for something. Right? Yeah. And then when we went to the baggage claim, they all had their mountain bikes and like the crazy carry-on bags or whatever, right? Or not carry-on, the check bags. I'm like, okay, so they flew from Denver to Bentonville to ride.
It's like, real.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You hear people talk about it and then you see it,
I had that same experience with climbers. I was leaving the airport actually, and I was at baggage claim with some people, and they were all just like sitting around. It was right before 24 Hours of Horseshoe Hell, and all of a sudden I see like crash pads just start like thundering out of the thing. I'm like, oh shit! And they were here to go to that, and had been here multiple years in a row, and we're just stoked to be back in Arkansas again, climbing.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that, though.
It's great. So tell us a little bit about tell us for starters about Well-Worn Life, from a top level jumping in and kind of where the inception of that came from.
Yeah, so I'm so bad with years. I want to say this was 2 years ago. LIVSN had reached out and said, hey, we want to do a piece, a short doc, and highlight someone that we think embodies what well-worn life means to them, to launch the women's pants, right? That was the initial concept. Mm-hmm. And so we had put them in touch with Danny Reyes Acosta, who is an athlete and storyteller that we had just been kind of linking up with on Instagram for a year or two. So reached out to her and said, hey, we want to do a feature on you for this brand LIVSN. And she was crazy enough to let a whole group of people, like 5 or 6 crew, come and live with her for a week in Colorado to capture that documentary. So it initially was kind of something that we expected to hit YouTube and be released with the women's pant. But Kelsey, the producer on the project, who's also the marketing director for LIVSN, was like, I'm going to just drop this in a few festivals and see what happens. Like, let's just submit it, And
kudos, Kelsey.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it got into a couple of smaller festivals that were like online only, and we're like, okay, this is cool. I guess people are watching it. And then a year ago this weekend, it was screened at Mountain Film in Telluride. So once we got the call about Mountain Film, we're like, okay, there's something going on here, And then it made it into Banff in Canada.
Wow.
So we traveled up there to premiere it for the Canadian premiere, and I think it's been in like 13 or 14 festivals now. So it just kind of spiraled from a short phone conversation to a really cool project that's now touring in 50 countries, 1,500 screenings with like 20 different subtitled languages on it. So yeah.
Well, if we need to do the follow-up podcast in Banff, we could definitely
I'm down. Let's go.
Yeah, there's a little bit too, just like starting earlier in that we wanted to do a film series even before this one with this is technically Well-Worn Life too.
Yeah.
And we were working with this guy out in California for one of our Kickstarters and doing some stuff. And he said, I know this guy named Kenny Aramoto who builds custom surfboards out of scrap boards and makes bike pedal covers out of old AstroTurf so he can ride his bike back from the beach barefoot. And we're like, that sounds cool. He's like, hey, how would you feel about we'll do a video and I'll produce it. And we're like, yeah, what will we call this and what were we doing? And we decided let's start a video series or a film series called Well-Worn Life. So Well-Worn Life 1 was technically a little 2.5 minute, 3 minute cut of Kenny Aramoto and his story out in California that we really didn't do a lot with. It was somebody out there that really spawned it. And then Daniel's got the official story down, but really we were just looking for someone to be like a short video around women's pants. Like we were like, we're going to get into women's pants. We're doing our women's pants finally. Like this is something everybody's asked for. Let's find a really rad woman to represent that. And then when we found Danny, that's when we're like, oh, Danny's really rad. Let's tell that story. And let's make this Well-Worn Life too. And it became a really terrible launch film for the pants because the film wasn't actually released to the public until like 2 years after the pants were, because we were in film festivals. And one of the restrictions is you had to let them do the premieres. So it really evolved from this like very tactical marketing focused thing into let's tell the story of this awesome woman and do justice by her. And now it's in festivals and it's got its own legs. And so now we're in the planning phases for Well-Worn Life 3. And really, this is a good opportunity to put out an all call for stories.
It absolutely is.
I've been meaning to do that for a while. So if anybody listening has a story that sounds like they've lived a well-worn life, it doesn't matter if they're young or old. It really just matters if they're out there doing something meaningful and feel like that they could say, I'm living a well-worn life. Like that's about all it is. It can be broad. And we would have never found Danny. We would have never said, we want this person who does this kind of thing. So we're really open for surprises there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So, did you make sure inventory was like on point when when it did release?
Yeah, things don't happen like that in real life. I mean, the pants that we actually launched, we had actually redone and launched them as a new version by the time it came out. So, we're not even really talking a lot about the original Flex Canvas
It's
women's
not
pants.
even the topic.
Yeah,
it's not even the point anymore.
So now it's really become a thing of its own.
It'd be like if the J. Peterman catalog in Seinfeld was had a entry and then it turned into like a novel. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are you hoping that this next edition comes out more parallel to a product, or?
No, in fact, we're just not tying it to a product at all. It's now its own thing.
Yeah, we learned the first time.
Yeah.
And really, you can't do that. Film festivals aren't going to take in an ad.
Yeah.
Right. And we had to be really careful about even showing too much LIVSN in the video, in the movie. She's wearing our pants the whole time, right? Or most of the time when she's not trail running. But it was a mindful exercise to be on the other side of marketing, right? If there's marketing to storytelling, we need to be on the storytelling side. Mm-hmm. It's obviously it starts with a LIVSN logo. Mm-hmm. It says film by LIVSN, right? That's the brand part of it. And that's what you can do at festivals, especially in the outdoor. That's the norm. Most of these films and storytelling is sponsored by a brand.
So it just became something completely different than what you set out initially to do, but you realized hey, we've got what's capable, what's possible based on what your all's ability to tell a story. And also I think it's a testament too to the brands that y'all have built in that people feel comfortable with y'all telling their story.
Oh yeah, that's and also just building a rapport with a subject is always an interesting thing, especially when you're sliding into someone's Instagram DMs and they've never met you before. Mm-hmm. You have to let them know that you're going to that they can trust you because you're really genuinely trying to, as Andrew said earlier, tell their story with respect. Mm-hmm. So.
I don't think she actually said yes until Kelsey took her out for tacos and tequila at Outdoor Retailer. I think I don't know. I could be getting that wrong. I'm almost certain tequila was involved, but they went out for She's like, I'm going to go meet Danny for lunch, and she was back 4 hours later. Yeah. She's like, she's in.
Kudos, Kelsey.
100%. Yeah.
All right. So Kickstarter number 5. We've alluded to it. Let's talk Kickstarter number 5.
Yeah,
sure.
What is it, Andrew?
So it's this one's special. So it's special in a few ways. We're doing the EcoTrek overalls. And so one just kind of note is that the EcoTrek pants campaign from a couple years ago was the one that's the number one. It's $515,000 on Kickstarter. And that fabric we've now used across shorts and women's pants and more pants, where we've sold tens of thousands of units of that. That fabric is proven, and it's got a cool story on its own. It's recycled fishing buoys that have been turned into a new nylon. So we're really confident in that, love it. And then our number one selling product right now is our Flex Canvas overalls. And so we're really putting those two things together. That's what it started with. Is let's make EcoTrek overalls, lighter weight, stretchier, good for all sorts of things, very outdoor, not necessarily workwear, right? But what makes this one really special is we're doing men's and women's at the same time, and the women's actually has the real technology. We're partnering with another young brand about the same age as LIVSN, who's been making their own waves, named Nara, formerly She-Fly, out of Colorado. And I've known Georgia Grace and Charlotte, the founders, since a long time ago. And their technology is basically a zipper that goes from right below the traditional zipper on a woman's pants all the way up to the back waistband that allows the pants to open and be able to use the bathroom outside without dropping trout, right? And then it came from this problem of the founder was a guide on glaciers, and all the male guides could just walk, 20 feet away, relieve themselves. She had to walk 200 yards away to get out of sight. And she decided that's a problem we're solving and has. So our women's overalls we're licensing the GoFly technology from Nara, and we're co-launching the Kickstarter.
Very cool. So what's the, do we have a watermark goal for Kickstarter number 5?
Oh, I don't know.
$1 million?
We always try for $1 million. We haven't gotten there yet, so we'll see. This one does have some early indicators. We actually had our first, I think, probably viral post we've ever posted for LIVSN, just on Instagram, and it was because we collab with them. And it's about overalls that you can be outside in. This will be very different for us. We're wondering, if it all goes well, will we still have a dominantly male audience? Because right now we've had male products for so long. We now have a full women's line, but especially on Kickstarter, it's male-dominated platform. We're a pretty previously male brand. So we're wondering who's going to have more pull. And I'm happy to say it'd be them, because that seems to be what's triggering positive responses is when women are like, oh my gosh, like I can finally be equal outside with the men that I'm hiking with, or anybody that needs to do that.
As someone and collectively as a kind of a team that worked on the Kickstarters, what advice would you give someone? So we get all kinds of entrepreneurs to the door. Of course, we meet with about 2,000 folks in one-on-one consulting a year. I think there's a perception from folks that have not gotten into it that you can put something on Kickstarter or whatever else and push the button and they're going to be like, they got a fully funded business tomorrow.
He said $1 million, and I was just about to check my phone to see how I click the button and how I get the $1 million straight away.
Dogecoin's up right now. So but that's just unrealistic. There's a lot of work that I think people don't realize. And I only knew this because of conversations with you previously of all the work that goes into those campaigns. And so for those listening who are interested in that, what advice would y'all collectively give, from the back end, the marketing, the storytelling?
Yeah, I will say that there's two different mindsets going in. You can say, I want to go in and make $1 million and I want to fund my business and I want to make a huge splash and that's all I'm going for. Or you can go in and say, I need $10,000 to start my microbrewery, or brand or small thing, and I really only need that 10K. Mm-hmm. And you can do those two things extremely effectively, very differently. Right. But the old rule of if you build it, they will come just doesn't apply either way. Mm-hmm. So the core concepts, actually, even the big campaigns start with the same playbook, right? You build something that you think people are going to like, you storytell it, you shoot it, you take a video, you make all that look right. And that's one of the main things on Kickstarter is you're trying to establish trust really early because you're a new brand. No one's heard of you. You need to look, feel, smell, and sound like the biggest campaigns. Mm-hmm. And you're still not going to be as big as them probably, but you're going to get people to trust you if you look the part. Mm-hmm. But that's where it gets the tactics are the exact same, is that really even on the big ones, you need to motivate your closest circles first. It doesn't matter if you want to be 1 million or 10,000, you need to have your friends and your family and your startup ecosystem, your local paper, all those small stuff, your clubs you're in, your outdoor sports, all that kind of stuff. They need to know that you're launching right then and know that it'd be really helpful if they backed it early. And if you don't do that, then the concentric circles of promotion don't work. You're trying to build a network effect. And then I just wanted to encourage people first. The second thing is it is a lot of work. If you want to do the big campaign, you really need to have a plan for how you're going to launch. You really need to, that if you build it, they will come thing doesn't apply right. So you need to have a really big or quite large audience of people who know what you're about to launch when and are ready to go on day one. Our first campaign, we did 78,000 and we had a 13,000 person email list we built up before we got there. Mm-hmm. Looking back, I think about 7,000 or 8,000 of those were completely trash emails because we did all these sign up and giveaways and stuff. But either way, you need a certain volume of pre-launch marketing. You're getting everybody educated and you're getting as many people in your circle. And then when you push go, that's when the magic happens. If you push go and then try to go promote it, it does not work. Right. As a general rule, it doesn't matter if you're trying to raise $200. You need to do all that work before you go live.
I just think it's funny that the difference between the first Kickstarter video and the ones after that, we didn't know necessarily what we needed to do. And I don't even really remember the conversation. I just know that Andrew was like, we need to go somewhere, outside, and let's go somewhere with mountains maybe to start. So we put together just this random route through Colorado and showed up to shoot the first day. And it was so what do we do now? So there's a lot of growth because that was 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a lot of just being in really pretty places. And it was actually funny getting Andrew mic'd up and saying, all right, talk about this brand. And he's like, well, I'm still building the brand. I don't know what to talk about yet, So it's cool though, just to see the numbers that we hit on the first one and how they've continued to grow. And now it's just we have a template down, so we know exactly what we need to do for our team, video and photo wise. The photos are really important, I think, in all of like the pre-roll stuff that y'all have to do. So like, it's not just having a Kickstarter video. There has to be a lot of like supporting imagery that you can use for the campaign and to kind of build hype on it. So yeah, it's just been cool to kind of learn that process with LIVSN. But looking back now, knowing that we're about to start the 5th one is pretty crazy.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot more pro, which makes it's not like we've gotten more pro. And so they have to keep up. They've been like, no. Where's the shot list? It's our schedule. Where's the script? I'm like, oh, the first time we just kind of went and took a bunch of video,
just winging it,
and figured it out afterwards. Can we do that again? And then I was like, no, we gotta be pro. We gotta get this.
Yeah, our processes have changed a lot in the last 6 years. So
it's like Victoria with our mics and this setup. Like, you remember recording past podcasts? We didn't have that.
I think it was just me and Jeff and some beer.
Yeah,
back in his office by his desk.
Yeah.
You know?
And this beautiful sign behind you, actually, you guys are the first ever podcast to have that.
Nice.
In
Wow.
the background. We just
Very
said that
nice.
yesterday. We made a lot of noise in the office, banging those hands to the wall.
Nice.
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, like that.
Flattered.
So what's winning? Like, what is winning? That's a Jeff question. I steal questions from him all the time. What does winning look like for you guys? Like, not just necessarily in regards to this 5th Kickstarter, but the next 5 years or so. What's the long game?
Yeah, I mean, the long game for us, we're expanding our team right now. We have a full-time producer starting in June. So that'll put us at 5 full-time employees. We work with a lot of other contractors on things, but basically we had the realization about 3.5 years ago that we were part of the film industry, and that solved a lot of problems that we were having.
Well, as an award-winning,
well, it just goes back to like what I said when we started Black Elk. We were just two people with cameras, and there wasn't a lot of like business implementation, right? So once it clicked that we were in the film industry, things just started kind of unfolding before us. So where we are now and where we want to go is definitely to continue to grow as a production company in the outdoor industry. And what that looks like for us would basically be taking on more branded documentaries, doing some docuseries for streaming services in the future, and then also just continuing to grow our presence in Northwest Arkansas. As it continues to grow and be more known as an outdoor hub, so.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's abstract, I guess, or it's easy to maybe picture. I'm not really sure. Those are very contrary statements. I've always just wanted people to say LIVSN in the same sentence as, say, Patagonia, North Face, Columbia, the biggest brands, right? Like you think outdoor and you think, who are those brands? I don't actually just want to, I'm not going to say like we want to be the new Patagonia, right? That'd be great, but I love Patagonia. We're not trying to like push them off and take their place. We just want to be among the legendary brands in this space. And when people start thinking of the outdoor industry and they start thinking of LIVSN, that's going to be the real piece that I'm looking for.
You love it for a reason, so you want to be loved. And I'm assuming, like,
I've always had a chip on my shoulder to be like the brand for the skeptics, right? Especially when it comes to things like sustainability and like outdoor bona fides or functionality. Is you see a lot of brands come up and they're like, oh, well, they're just kind of paying lip service to these things. The products actually aren't that great. They're not really. They're greenwashing everything. Like my goal is to have a brand that is like almost skeptic proof, right? That like, and we're working on that where we make these claims and then there's a lot of backup behind them, right? Whether that be the functionality of the products or what we say about sustainability. And we're working on that on the back end a lot to make sure that we are backing up the claims that we make fully. And on that first note, I thought something was really fun. Outdoor Retailer is this big trade show that the outdoor industry has. And it's been in Salt Lake City and it's been in Denver and back in Salt Lake City. And it's kind of struggling since COVID, like really struggling actually. And they're trying really hard to get people to come back. So they like send out emails saying like, oh, this brand is here, come on. And we signed up through the state of Arkansas, actually. State of Arkansas is sponsoring a booth. We're going with the state. And that makes it, that makes it really easy on us to make the expense. But the point is, I saw an email come through from Outdoor Retailers, like marketing team saying like LIVSN is coming to OR as the headline. And it just made me think that like even like 2 years ago, they would have never thought that LIVSN could have any value that would bring other brands here. And now we're thought of, at least by the showrunners, as a brand that other people are going to be, oh, look, LIVSN's coming. Maybe we should too. And I found that to be really gratifying.
That's awesome.
This is kind of a sidebar. He was talking about skeptics earlier. I think Trent has a story about a photo that was posted on LIVSN's account. I thought about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of people that are trying to, I don't even know why, troll businesses. And it's like, how do y'all have time for this?
The comments. You don't ever read the comments.
Exactly. That don't. Because, they posted a photo
but...
of mine. It was at Kings River Falls, and it was my buddy Clark jumping in the waterfall, and the leaves hadn't quite come in yet. It was like mid-April. And just, I don't even remember what the guy...
He said...
Something like, quit advertising summer clothes in the winter or something.
He was saying this is obviously photoshopped. If you're gonna like make a claim about your products, at least use a real photo or something.
And obviously I took offense to that because I read the comment, and so it
didn't even take
it lit a fire under me, and I went down the rabbit hole and found a photo that I had shot 6 years prior, and found the metadata, found the date. I went and looked at the weather forecast. I made a GIF of the photo of him jumping in, so I was like, it's clearly not photoshopped. An entire sequence of this. And
this one was fun
just
though,
for him to probably not be only I don't care.
Yeah,
he didn't do that in a vacuum, because this is my favorite thing. The guy was confidently incorrect.
Yeah.
Like he wrote like a research paper,
the best ones
format, and being like,
the comments usually are.
The water's too
that
cold.
guy, that water's way too cold for anybody to be in at that time of year. Secondly, there's no way any human could jump that far from the edge. Thirdly, those plants in the backgrounds are ... and they don't bloom until June in that zone, and like he had researched it all, and then Trent this is before Trent had been like, absolutely, you're completely wrong. I have all the proof. And so that guy was just like, it's really fun to have proof, to prove somebody who's very confidently incorrect that they're very wrong.
Was it for them to probably just respond with like a one word derogatory term?
It was
just
it was just like a tail between the legs. I'm out.
But yeah, it's funny that those kind of ads that have that kind of comment activity going on are the best ads. Like they outperform everything else. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative.
Because it's traction comments.
And we've learned, and we don't really do this, but when we accidentally make like a typo or the photo looks photoshopped or like there's something else going on, most famously, or not famously, well, internally famously, is like our best performing ad right now on social media is our overalls, which is our number one selling product also, but it's our sales manager wearing overalls that are arguably too tight for him. And that's what we've showed. And so the comments are all these good old boys being like, oh, hell, now they're making skinny jeans overalls. You know what I mean? And all this kind of stuff. And so like, it just leads to all these comments, and that ad just kills it, because people are like, oh, I actually like kind of want some overalls that don't fit like a trash bag. I'm into that. And so that's just like controversy works. And there's everybody knows that, I guess. That's the reason clickbait works, but it feeds the algorithm.
Like, maybe trolls are just doing you a favor.
They really are.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe I was the troll the whole time.
Get a burner.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, looking for stories. This is a question that, we typically have specific questions we end the podcast with. I'm going to add this one to it. If y'all had an ask of listeners, you're looking for stories, what else might that ask be?
That's story related.
Or just a general ask, like,
for who the talent for well-worn life,
or just
in general,
just like what's something you want listeners to take away, like if they're listening, they're like, oh yeah, I can help with this.
I think for us, a lot of people hear about what we do, but I don't think they still comprehend it sometimes. Our website has so many awesome case studies on it to where you can get a really good idea of what it takes to get a production team outdoors. We literally list how many days we're on location, the whole crew, and then put behind the scenes photos. We do behind the scenes vlogs too, so you can kind of see what's happening. You
can actually watch the vlog from that first Kickstarter video that we're talking about, where we just went to Colorado for like 5 days and drove around, like camped in different spots. I think it's really entertaining, but I keep in mind that I'm like in it.
I was going to say there might be a little bias there.
There's some bias there, but you can watch what really happened. That's back in 2018. I'm sure
I've only watched it 28 times. So.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely check out the website. Our new headquarters is right in the heart of Fayetteville, off of Colt Square. So that's like right off of Township. If you follow us on social media, we're trying to do like at least 4 like quarterly events. Or I guess quarterly events, not 4 quarterly events. We're trying to do a lot of community networking events for like creatives and just people that are into the outdoors and also cars, because that's another passion that we have. So we've had a couple events up there that were really cool. So that's a great place to kind of keep tabs on what's going on there. And then the last thing, I forgot what it was. Maybe I'll remember.
Just go look at the website. We worked really hard on that. So go check it out.
It looks good. I'd say
I remember. Go ahead.
the obvious one is, you know, if you haven't checked out LIVSN's products or our products, I'd love for you to try them out. But the really specific one is we are really looking for really great retailers all over the country. And one of the most powerful things you can do as a consumer to help a brand that you like is walk into a store if they don't have it and say, hey, where's your LIVSN stuff? Don't say, hey, you know about this brand, you should have it. You should say, like, you walk in there like it should be there, because it probably should. Like any outdoor retailer, any outfitter, any like Pack Rat or Gearhead or Ozark Outdoor or any of that, or Woodsman and Fort Smith, like any of those, and they don't have it, be like, where's your LIVSN stuff? And then you can say, you should have it. That helps us out a lot because those store managers listen.
Speaking of store managers, I was in Moose Jaw, maybe, in Bentonville a few days ago, and I was looking at the overalls. And the guy, I don't know if the manager or just the guy that worked there, went on to like tell me the LIVSN story. I was like, oh, that's local, and just like went into his spiel. I was like,
Cool.
Yeah, I let him talk. I was like, I know. You want to ask the land the plane question?
Yeah, trying to say it as concise as I can. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? With all the knowledge that you know now.
Networking is everything. Just put yourself out there as much as humanly possible. Try not to miss any opportunities, because that really is what's going to drive your business the most. I don't think I learned that until a couple years in, how important it really is. I think that would be one.
I'm still thinking.
I am too.
Commercial break.
Yeah, we can cut out
For the
all
ads that we don't
ahs and ahs.
Also, call to action. If you want to sponsor the Startup Junkies podcast, hit us up.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something less generic, but I think be present at all times. Like when you're starting a business, you're always thinking about the future, and you have to. Right? Like you have to have a vision. You have to communicate that. But also, like, you're doing stuff every day. You're having fun, and you don't want to miss it because you're always just focusing on a goal that you'll probably never achieve. That's like the point, right? You have to set this lofty goal that you're probably never going to get to. And if you wrap yourself up in not achieving the goal, then you're going to miss the ride.
The fortune of like hearing Jeff talk about and hear Jeff ask questions and tell people he's the office dad, but have the fortune of hearing him kind of talk about that as well. And he talks about just enjoying the journey. Like the journey is the goal. So just like recognize that you're in that journey and kind of soak it in rather than just, try to get to where you're going.
Right.
For me, I think it's I think a lot of times people like to focus on the future a lot, and that leads to a lot of stress and uncertainty. But anytime that I feel like we've hit a wall or something, it's always helped to just take a step back and look back and say, like, hey, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined that LIVSN would be in the OR email to everyone. For us, just taking a pause and looking back and seeing where we came from is always like really motivating. And it definitely it just puts things in perspective, where sometimes it's hard to see the growth because you're in it every day, and so you're not necessarily seeing it happen, but just being able to look back at and say, oh man, like 2 years ago we were doing this, now we're doing this. It helps a lot.
Having a business is like having like kids, and then like your like network or like the uncle you only see twice a year, and they're like, oh my God, he's grown so big. And you're like, has he? And like, that's exactly like, they're like, oh my God, you're doing so awesome. And you're like, today didn't feel great. But yeah, like people are looking at it as like snapshots over time, and they're seeing you grow, and it's hard to know that when you're in it, When
you describe it as having a kid, I now don't want to start a business. I
think that analogy goes much deeper than that one too. For sure. It's a lot of diapers to change. I have 3 kids, and 2 of them are human, like it's
Sleepless nights. Yeah. The thing I was going to say earlier, backing up really quick.
You can't do that.
Yeah, I know. Something that's been really critical for our business is our partnership with this company called Van Do It, based out of Blue Springs, which is basically Kansas City, Missouri. So we knew that we wanted to get outside, and they were able to build us a van that allowed us to, move our whole production team to these remote locations. And so it kind of goes back to like the collaboration thing we were talking about earlier. When we reached out to them, initially they were like, yeah, we get a lot of emails of people saying that, they'd like to partner with us, or, looking for sponsorships or whatever. But once we showed them what we could do, they were like, okay, these guys are crazy enough to take our product to the beaches of Baja and up to 14,000 feet peaks and to Death Valley. So it once they saw the value in what we could do, we basically just built a partnership similar to what we have with LIVSN. So I just wanted to shout out Van Do It because they make awesome vans. And I think that they have one of the best van products on the market right now. So it's on our website, though. You'll see it if you go to the van tab.
Yeah. I will say something else you mentioned earlier, and Daniel mentioned like being an early investor into LIVSN and those connections and how it works. There's a specific thing, and it's related to this Well-Worn Life. By taking Well-Worn Life to Mountain Film and going to that film festival, Daniel went and networked with people out there and really got connected with some other talent and subjects and people that are just making waves in the outdoor industry. And so they got access, right, to new people and new clients, and that's made new business. And then it goes both ways. Because when we were looking for talent to come out and shoot this new video for the EcoTrek overalls, we said we want to, have more diverse faces on this. We want to not just show our friends this time. Like let's bring some new people in. And someone Daniel met and made a connection with out at Mountain Film, who's really well known in the outdoor industry, agreed to come out and come to the Ozarks and do our video shoot for us. And I don't think in any other world he would have said yes to that. He would have said, no way, I have no idea who LIVSN is. I'm not going to Arkansas. But since Daniel made that connection with them and they've been working together, Daniel was able to vouch for us and say, no, like you should come out here. Like this will be good. And so we got some talent, or a person, a human that is going to be really great for the video. And that's because of this kind of back and forth relationship of investing in each other and going places together and continuing to work for each other when it probably doesn't always make the most financial sense, mostly for them.
I think to Trent's point about networking too, there's also a message in there about being open to like meeting and connecting and having conversations with people.
Absolutely.
That's something I struggle with from time to time. Like my natural inclination is to like, I'm introverted.
To not accept that invite.
Yeah. Don't miss those opportunities. And then the other thing I think is be as flexible as possible. Even though you have these goals, be flexible. It goes back to the Well-Worn Life documentary, how it was supposed to be an advertisements piece. Then it wasn't able to be, and it turned into this whole other thing. And the same thing with our office space. We had no idea that we would be able to turn that into an activation place for community events and that kind of thing. So just being flexible and not being too stubborn about your goals is a huge part.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I just feel like I should say this. It's not that I don't like you and don't want to look at you. It's that I'm sharing a mic with him, and so it's easier to look this way. But
it's completely okay. I've been staring at you the whole time.
No, I know. I'm just like, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, hey, how's it going?
Okay, final question. Why don't you like him? Final question. You mentioned the websites, but for those that want to connect with y'all, if they have a story, any sort of thing like that, they want to learn more, they want to connect with y'all, where do they go?
For LIVSN, we're on Instagram as our main social, so LIVSN Designs at LIVSN Designs. On the internet, you can just go to www.livsn.com, LIVSN.
Is that the World Wide Web?
Yeah.
Okay.
World Wide Web dot company, I guess is what that stands for. Anywho, and then if you have a story, you can either DM us on Instagram. That's a pretty good way to reach us, or email that to, I'm going to put it out in the world, Kelsey at livesndesigns.com.
You're welcome, Kelsey.
KELSEY. That's where if you have a story, you feel like that you have a story worth telling, and or not even, just like that you have a story at all.
Or you want to nominate someone.
Or you want to nominate somebody for a story. That's where you should send that. Cool.
Yep. Go for it.
Yeah, for us, it's blackelkmedia.com, but that's BLK ELK media.com. We get Belk Elk a lot. Someone called us Big Elk the other day.
Black Oak.
Yeah, Black Oak.
We're livings most of the time.
But yeah, and then we use Instagram a lot. So same thing on there, BLK ELK media. And then YouTube is the same. for that. And then all of our personal Instagrams are attached in some way, so you can
Cell
follow us
phone
there.
number,
Yeah,
mother's
we'll
maiden
leave
name.
those
Yeah. Awesome. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Always
having
good.
us.
Yeah.
Always a good time.
Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.